And we're back. Victorian Rumble Room rides again. I'm Robin Adair. With me, as always, my co-host with the most, the Croatian sensation,
Yeah.
John John Jurisic. And Johnny, it's great to have another show because there's so much to talk about in BC politics right now. The BC Conservatives leadership race, who's going to win? What are the odds? And would the NDP call a snap election and surprise everybody? I don't think so. But we're going to talk to Ryan Painter in a moment and find out what he thinks.
Ryan has such a varied political past, and he's been in the backroom of politics recently. So this is a great guest to have and chat to us about what's going on with politics. My message will be get on with it. People are sitting back, worried about the economy. They're worried about opportunities. They want to find and settle themselves in this crazy world. Listen, politicians, read the room. Solve problems for us, the voter.
Couldn't say more about it, but I bet you Ryan Painter can. Let's zoom him in.
Oh my gosh, it's been a while since we've had this extraordinary guest, Ryan Painter. I've seen you on Instagram. I've seen you get married. I've seen you do interviews everywhere. We got him today on the Rumble Room. We're so excited. Ryan, what are you doing these days?
Well, happy to be here, John. Happy to be here, Robin. I am fully engaged back in the amazing world of public relations and communications consulting. It is my passion. It is the work that I've done pretty much consistently for the last 20 some odd years, working with charities and nonprofits as well. A big part of why I do what I do. I've always loved the charity and nonprofit sector. They contribute so much to community up and down Vancouver Island. And for your viewers and listeners who might not know, for every investment that the province makes in the charitable nonprofit sector, they have a 4 to 5 times greater return into their communities. So it is important. The little plug, charity nonprofit sector. I don't care who you support. I don't care who you donate to, but donate. They need your love. But that's
you want to help out Ryan Painter, go to Rhino PR Strategies, right?
That's right.
We of course brought you on to talk about that. And John, you're such a great guy for making sure we give him a chance to
Gotta
give his
give the
business a plug. You got to give him a plug, right?
But we have you on for other reasons.
There is another reason. Something's happening right now.
I know people don't like to think about it as much, but formally, you were the director of communications for the BC Conservative Caucus. And
yes, sir.
Hey, there's a BC Conservative leadership race underway. We have five people. I know, hard to believe. I think it's May 30th is when the big vote comes.
That is correct.
Yuri Fulmer, an entrepreneur. They say he's more on the right side of the party. We also have, of course, Ian Black, who was formerly a cabinet minister under Gordon Campbell's government, and Christy Clark as well, I believe. So, and then we also have Peter Millibar, three-time mayor of Kamloops, who's a sitting MLA, and that's how he differentiates in this crowd. He's the only one who's actually right now an elected official. We have Carolyn Elliott, an executive with the BC United, and was heavily involved with BC Liberals back in the day as well. And am I missing somebody here? Carrie Lynn Finley, who is a former member of Parliament from Surrey, White Rock. And so, not a bad cross section of candidates. Who do you see?
And actually, Carolyn Finley was a cabinet minister under Stephen Harper as well. So she has that, background.
A bit of experience.
There. Yeah. Not a bad roster of candidates. Quite a cross section. Some might say more to the right. Some say more to the conservative middle, and some say, maybe BC Liberals who are wearing different stripes. So who do you see as the front runner in this?
Well, but before we jump into the front runner stuff, I want to give people a bit of lay of the land in where we are right now, because we had quite a few candidates out the gate in late January, February. And then some of them, as happens in leadership races, they coalesce for various reasons. Some people join other campaigns. And there have been some things that have happened along the way as well, with the Juno debate, where 2 candidates didn't show up, and that received quite a bit of play. So right now, who I see as having the most kind of big momentum leading into the deadline for membership signups, which is, I believe, 5 p.m. on the 18th this weekend. I see Ian Black very much getting a lot of momentum. I see it online. He had a really impressive endorsement from James Moore, who in the kind of conservative world, especially in the BC world, has a lot of respect. Again,
Yeah.
Harper level cabinet minister, believe the president or chair of the Northern BC or University of Northern BC, but very, very well respected, very smart person, fiscally kind of right of center. So that was significant. The other person who has actually, and I'm not going to say it's surprising to me, but I didn't anticipate would get the momentum when they have is Carrie Lynn Findlay. She's also gotten quite a bit of momentum, very recently getting an endorsement from Chilliwack MLA Heather Moss. Again, very connected to that really solid right wing of the party with Heather Moss. Carrie Lynn has definitely branded herself as the anti-BC liberal conservative candidate. I think Ian Black has definitely labeled himself as the person who can come in and fix things. He, as a previous cabinet minister, but as a CEO as well, he's someone who says, look, I've gone in and I've fixed companies that have had challenges. I can come and fix British Columbia. So I think both of them are gaining quite a bit of momentum, and it's going to be fun to watch.
Let me pull you back from the minutia. Hauling you back, baby. Okay, so great. I know some of those candidates.
Mm-hmm.
Likely most British Columbians don't.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what the common person is hearing every day or every week? David Eby is doing this, ruining this. This is broken. This is no money. We're bankrupt. We're desperate for an option. We are desperate for something. When is that going to start to mobilize? Do we actually have to wait? Is there anyone now saying this is the alternative? Do we actually have to wait to the end of May? Like somebody needs to slam David Eby and all of his incompetencies, as far as I'm concerned.
So it's a very good point. And I want to put a plug for Trevor Halford in here, the interim leader of the BC Conservative Party, thrown into a position that he never had any expectation of jumping into. I think he's done an exceptionally, I'm not even going to say admirable job. He's done an amazing job of keeping this caucus together, keeping them focused, and really holding David Eby's feet to the fire, whether it's around DRIPA, whether it's around healthcare failing. I mean, you can talk to anyone in BC about healthcare accessibility, and everybody is going to have a story of how healthcare has failed them or failed someone that they love. So I really want to give a solid plug for interim leader Trevor Halford. He's done great. But look, to answer your question, leadership races are always internal. They are internal. There's maternal mechanics. There's maternal economies of action. And yeah, a lot of people get kind of a gloss over of what's happening. A really good example is you get a lot of these candidate-sponsored polls that start coming out that show this candidate's ahead. You'll always be shocked, I'm sure, to see a candidate-sponsored poll putting that candidate ahead of everybody else. And the media tends to pay attention to those. They're generally meaningless in terms of how people inside these political parties and movements really are calculating things. A lot of it is, what are people standing for? What are the conversations that are happening? What are the big issues that are going on in that moment in time? There are going to be 2 more debates. These are, quote, party-sanctioned debates. Not really sure what that means, but they are party debates. One at CSFN, and you'll forgive me, I don't recall where the second one is. I think it's next month. And those are going to be where all 5 candidates are on the stage together. So those will be the first opportunities for people to really see all 5. But you're right. Things are bad in BC right now.
Let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, a $13.3 billion projected deficit for this year. That means
whatever, 20 billion, Robin. Who cares?
$183.4 billion debt. I mean, and we've heard this many times in politics and political discussions. It's the economy, stupid. And I think about Stephen Harper. And when Stephen Harper came in as the leader of what had been the Reform Party, joining with the Progressive Conservatives, he immediately said, we're tamping down on all this social conservative stuff. There were lots of social conservatives, especially coming out of the West, who were big on, changing a lot of social conservative issues and getting them on the forefront. Harper backed off on that. And yet I see, some of the things that are being talked about is an immediate stop to DRIPA.
Mhm.
Now, I know that there are people out there that don't really understand it. There's a
Mhm.
lot of people out there who probably are concerned about the First Nations having too much power. It's not a well understood thing, but the
Mhm.
black and white about that, it strikes me as very strong. And also very strong talking about stopping all the wokeism being taught in BC schools. And you think, well, what exactly are they talking about there? Do you think that this could get them sidelined or sidetracked between social issues that maybe aren't forefront on BC voters' minds with what they're really concerned about, which is the terrible management of this province?
Yeah.
When I talk to people about what they're facing right now, it's $200 away from not being able to pay their bills. It's the fact that groceries are getting more and more expensive. You literally don't have to drive very far to see what gas prices are at, right? People are feeling nickel and dimed every which way they turn. Those are the primary concerns people have. That's not to discount some of the more socially conservative issues. There are certainly places for those conversations to be had, and I even think around kind of some of the wokeness in education. I definitely think there's places for those conversations to happen in and out of the legislature. But if you look at any real poll, any good thorough poll, or any kind of sidewalk, street level, cafe level conversation, what do you care about right now? It's paying my bills. It's can my kids afford a home? It's do we have healthcare that's accessible? It's are there jobs even available? Look, 80,000 British Columbians in the last 2 years moved out of the province. We have the third biggest area if BC's interest on the debt paid on BC's debt would be the third biggest ministry in terms of funding in BC. First would be healthcare, then education, then the interest on BC's debt. So, I mean, these are the things that people really care about, right? And you pass that debt and that deficit on to future generations. So, when I chat with folks about the issues that everybody is facing right now, they acknowledge that those other, I feel bad pushing them aside because for some people they really, really matter. And it's not to say that they don't, but the things that coalesce everybody is cost of living, affordability, healthcare, jobs, the economy. Those are the real red meat issues that
But
people care about.
if I was David Eby, and of course I'd have to be way taller if that was the case, I'd be thinking, how can I poke holes in these guys? I'd be
Mm,
looking at some of these social issues. How can I make them look more like Donald Trump? How can I
mm,
make this look? This is the reenactment of Trumpism in British
mm,
Columbia. I could just see that kind of language being used.
Yes.
This is what Donald Trump would do, and we would never
mm,
do this because we're so
mm.
principled, even though we can't manage a corner market. So,
Yeah.
that has to be a worry, doesn't it?
Well, in fact, Robin, that did happen a lot last year. I mean, we experienced that a lot in various votes and different things like when the tariffs were coming down. Any opportunity that the government had to wedge against the conservatives and call them Trumpite or Trump-like or something, lovers of Donald Trump, they always did that. Here's the thing, though. Do people generally have a sense that what's happening from the United States is a pain in the ass? Absolutely, they do. But people do get tired of hearing that same rhetoric over and over again and not seeing any solutions. It's fine if you want to use language to contrast the other side. But if your solutions, in big air quotes, are just making things worse, it
More
begins
debt,
to
baby.
dilute the
More debt.
right, right. It dilutes the impact of your contrast language. So it was ineffective then. It's even more ineffective now. And I think generally you see that again in the polling. You don't really see that Trump warrior, that Trump anger ranking nearly as high as some of these other issues.
So, Carney, whether you like him or not, and
Mm.
apparently a few people like him more than they don't like him these
He's
days.
got a majority now, so clearly people like him.
We'll talk
Clearly
about that in
people
a few
like him.
minutes. There's a sense that there is a re-engineering of our economy,
Mm,
that there is possibility here for opportunity, for jobs, for taking advantage of what made Canada a great economy, the resources. I feel like we're freaking losing that opportunity in BC because of EB. From your understanding and relationship with these 5, 6 candidates, are the Conservatives going to come out of the gate focused on the economy? Please say yes.
so You know what? Yes. I'm going to say yes, because I've listened to every single candidate here and all of them get it. They all understand that BC is in a precarious situation where we're one project away from probably going even further and further into debt. And I mean one project approval. Now, apparently EB has all these projects that are being approved all over the place. Well, I don't see them. I haven't seen them going up. I haven't seen shovels in the ground. I've seen him take credit for a lot of stuff that happened in the past, but I don't see anything new happening. In terms of getting a pipeline built, I'm really glad that Prime Minister Carney and Premier Danielle Smith got an MOU together to get a pipeline built. I think that can move a lot faster. I hope it does move faster. And I know any one of these 5 candidates will be wholesale behind that and behind getting our resources to market and engineering BC's economy so we can actually create jobs and wealth, because holy Hannah, that's the only way you generate prosperity.
You know, we talked about Mr. Carney just a moment ago. John brought him up. A lot of people are thinking about him. One of the things that I really think is really positive about Mark Carney coming in is he has immediately pushed the federal Liberals to the center, and they are becoming a bigger tent party. A lot of people who probably would vote Conservative for sure if Justin Trudeau was still the leader are now looking at Carney thinking, well, I think I could go for some of these things if he follows through with them. But the big tent, I think that's so important. It has to also be on the minds of the BC Conservatives, that they've got to be seen as a big tent party. And the big tent has to include the former BC Liberals, who are numerous in this province. Liberals are numerous in this province. You can't get snarky about them, and you certainly have to be careful about attacking other leadership candidates who maybe come from that camp. I think about Millibar. I think about Elliott, who other people are saying are the front runners, who do come from the BC Liberal side.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
So, no, I mean, right. What are your feelings about that? Do you think that they can get to be a big tent party and actually campaign as that and people believe it?
They have to be, Robin. You don't win British Columbia if you don't have a big tent. You don't win British Columbia on the right fringe. You just don't. You don't win British Columbia by being a wholesale only right-wing party. You don't. Anybody who thinks you can is kidding themselves. And that's just the way it is. Anyone who's paid attention to British Columbia politics for any amount of time understands. You win, broadly speaking, by capturing as many moderates as you can. And actually, Canada's won the same way, shockingly enough. BC is a microcosm of, I think, the national politic and the conversation that happens. But I think you have some candidates that really eschew that. They see any kind of BC Liberal incursion in the party as a bad thing. And I'm going to be blunt. I don't. I want to see us get as many former BC Liberal members, heck, other NDP members who are disaffected with how the NDP has abandoned the working class. I think we can absorb those members. Heck, if you are a fiscal conservative and you really like recycling, come on over to us as well, right? Like, there is room for, I think, everybody of a fiscal mind and a fiscal bent to come into the Conservative Party. And the more you try to winnow down who can be in that party, the more you hand a win to David Eby. Here's the facts. Every single election, except maybe for the 2001 election, the difference between the NDP and or the winning party and number two is maybe 1%. You're always in the 39 to 40% realm, 38 to 40% realm. It's not that much. So the only way you move that difference around is by being as broad a coalition as you can and attracting people to vote for you.
All right. Okay, here I have another one for you, because I just, just such a national pundit. Fantastic talking to you, Ryan.
Thanks,
Federal
John.
NDP collapsed. Now they've identified themselves with a leader left of left. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with your view, but I don't think it's going to capture the public's imagination. Is the same thing possibly going to happen in BC at a provincial level? Would the NDP vote collapse if a moderate conservative were to be chosen? Is the Green Party going to pull anything away from the left? Are we going right off the cliff on the left? I don't know. What do you think?
It's a great question. I want to steal a line from my old friend and dear friend John Horgan, who's it was a line referring to Ben Isett here in Victoria. And he said, "The things I have to say about that man aren't fit for print." That's how I feel about Avi Lewis. So that's as much as I'm going to say about him. In terms of the BC context, I think if you have a BC conservative leader who can capture the moment, capture the anxiety that people have, the fears of a province that not only doesn't represent them, but is chasing their kids and their grandkids away, I think you absolutely can have a coalition that can defeat David Eby. Now, to your point about what happens with the NDP then, well, the NDP are in a bit of trouble because they've got Emily Lowen, who is a very strong on the left, kind of the environmentalist, she's taking up a lot of that social left flank. So she's really eating into that NDP support on the left. And if the NDP aren't careful, as I don't think that they have been, I think John was very, very good at showing that the NDP can be an economically minded, fiscally prudent party that can execute on kind of the social and the economic at the same time and still really have that compassion for people. I think David Eby has gone far, far and away from that. And the only example you need is that when John Horgan left, he left David Eby with a $6 billion surplus, and David Eby in 3 years has pissed that away to a $13.3 billion deficit, $18 billion in the other direction, running and screaming from it. So to answer your question, yeah, I think the BC NDP will be in danger of trying to get a leader who is too far to the left and might actually end up finding themselves in a bit of a circumstance where the federal NDP are. Although I want to just caution, I don't think that that's as likely. My sense of things and where BC politics tends to go and where BC leaders tend to go, they tend to be kind of that middle of the road bent. Carol James certainly was. Adrian Dix, a little bit more to the left, but he was still economically minded. I think David Eby has been.
Well, you're being kind today, Ryan.
I'm being kind. Like, Adrian's a good guy. I like Adrian.
Well, he's not a bad guy, but I'd hardly call him centrist anyway.
Well, no, I'm not calling him centrist, but I'm saying in the broad scheme of things, if you were to stack up Carol James, John Horgan, Adrian Dix, and David Eby, which one of those is the furthest left? I'm going to say probably David Eby.
Okay, we'll give you that. But the thing is, I think that you looked at the roster of the NDP. Do you see another John Horgan in the wings if they were to move away from David Eby? And I've heard a lot of rumbles.
Not.
I have friends that actually are NDPers, and they've told me that there's a lot of discontent within the ranks about Eby's leadership. They see the polls, they see what's going on, and what I will say about the NDP is they're much more united as a party and as a group.
Yes.
Than the BC Conservatives have been up until now. When they have 5 people that got elected as BC Conservatives now sitting as independents in this very early government, it's still a bit of a mess. So that's something the NDP can hold on to. But is there a leader who could step forward and actually bring them more under the center?
So I'm gonna pull the curtain back a little bit here on a bit of my own history. So as some of your readers or readers, listeners and viewers may know, I was an NDPer at one point in my life a few years back. And when John stepped back and announced he was resigning, I was pushing very hard behind Ravi Kahlon because I liked Ravi. I liked what he stood for. I thought he was the natural successor to John Horgan. For reasons that I think have been very public, he did not do that because he has a young family and all respect to him. Looking right now after kind of seeing where they've been in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, I honestly don't see anybody who looks like he's got that kind of Horgan quality, that Horgan reluctant leader, fatherly characteristics that can actually bring the NDP to a place of kind of fiscal responsibility. But I also think it's going to be really difficult for any of them, even if David Eby leaves. And I do think that there is a greater than 0% chance that David Eby is not the leader of the NDP when we go to the next election. I think it's very probable. I have people who are still involved in the party who still talk to me, much like they talk to you, Robin, telling me how angry that they are, that there are leadership campaigns kind of percolating in the background. I believe it. I totally believe it. But it's going to be very difficult for them to cobble together that majority of support, seeing what a bad job Eby has done to BC's economy. And I think it leaves a huge opportunity open for the BC Conservatives to really get that economic message back. You're right. It's been a bit of a struggle with that new party kind of finding its legs underneath them and figuring out what they represent and what they stand for. You're not wrong. They lost 4 party members. That's a hard thing to come, or 5, sorry. It's a hard thing to come back from, but they have to retool. They have to coalesce. They have to focus on an economic message. Or they, in my honest opinion, they don't have a hope in the next election.
All right. I'm going to talk about the issue du jour. Is that all right? Is that the right frame?
That's a good one.
Issue du jour.
In your beautifully spoken French, John. That's it.
It's better than my French, John. That's for sure.
Floor crossing. Okay. I'm uncomfortable with it, but I wanted it to happen. I want Carney to have. It's legal. I want this government to have a chance to implement their economic and political. Okay, I do. But what is your opinion on this, please?
Oh, I have had and I'm going to be honest. It depends on how tired I am. It depends what time of day it is. I have a general thought around floor crossings, and if I look at it academically, if I look at it as a parliamentary practitioner that I am, I definitely, it is allowed to happen within our Westminster parliamentary system. Take a big step back, and I'm not going to bore your viewers. However, we must remember in the Westminster parliamentary system, you elect members of parliament. You do not elect parties. And that is just how the Westminster parliamentary system works. That being said, in 2026, the majority of the people go to the ballot box voting for a party and they vote for a leader. And so I completely understand the anxiety, the anger, the upset that people feel when they see, especially for constituents, when they see someone that they voted for, they may have door knocked for, they may have donated for, deciding to abandon what to them feels like core principles and join another party. I get that. I feel that anger and that upset, regardless of how legal or proper, quote unquote, it may be. I get that it's a problem. Now, me speaking personally, I think anytime that happens, it should be an automatic by-election. I know that's going to cost money. I understand and I appreciate that. But there's absolutely, to me, no rationale. If you have the courage of your convictions to be on another party, then let the public decide. That's where I am with it.
I guess you and John are on the same page. To me, it's just Canadian politics, and I love it. And also, I see that Carney's moved the party to the center, even to the right, and a lot of people that are soft conservatives, red Tories, if you like, are attracted to that. And I think a lot of them, and if you look at Carney's not exactly suffering in the public opinion polls because of it. His ratings are sky high. People love Mark Carney. They're right. So proud of him on the international scene. Just before we let you go, though.
Oh, I don't want to let him go. I don't want to let him go.
Oh, we don't ever want to let you go. We love you, kid, but
guys,
the thing
my
is,
head just cannot get any bigger. I need a new office. My head is.
Oh, God, you need a bigger office for sure. Hopefully your business will pick up. But anyway, I just want to ask you about John Rustad, who seems to be winging up stuff still seems to be an angry man. Wouldn't it be better for John Rustad to say, look, I can see that my time had run out, and be the statesman and maybe even play the kingmaker? Wouldn't that look better on him than firing off salvos about misdeeds behind closed doors and making aspersions about certain candidates and their teams?
Oh, that's a good question, Robin. I worked with John for a year, a little more than a year. And he is a man who has deeply held convictions. He really cares about the province. Like, he really, really, I believe to his bones, he really does. And I think he saw in 2024 a real opportunity to save British Columbia from what was going to be a sinking and worsening debt crisis, jobs crisis, healthcare crisis. And I think that spurred him on to do what he did, because you have to remember, when he went over, became the leader of the Conservative Party of BC, everyone thought it was a joke. Nobody took it seriously. And now they are the official opposition and they are the government in waiting. So that's because of him. To see what happened with BC, and I'm thinking you're referring back to some of this BC United kind of tampering with the fake website and these folks who have been ostensibly linked to Peter Millibar's campaign, and they've said that they're not, so that's fine. But I think I
But I just don't
understand.
think it looks very good on John Rustad.
No, no,
I
no,
agree
no.
with you. I think John Rustad is a nice guy and worked
Mm,
very hard to build that party. I don't actually think it was ready to govern. And if you look at
mm,
all the people that left the party as soon as they
mm,
came very close to winning, you kind of know that they weren't really in a position to do that. But I don't blame
mm,
John Rustad. But I just
mm.
think he's worked so hard to be nice to see him coming out of this, I think, in a better light, and maybe as a guy who's a kingmaker and a statesman and an elder statesman, which is really what he is.
Yeah, and leadership debates are about where you want the party to go, and I think he's making it very clear that there are directions that he is very concerned about where the party might go. And look, again, if you see how close we came, and you suddenly realize that there were kind of some underhanded tactics that were happening, I don't blame him for having the response that he has, because he poured his blood, sweat, and tears into that, and he's having a human reaction. I'm going to let him have that, because I think that's totally fair. And again, I think he's trying to really, I think, shine a light on some things. And there are places that he hasn't endorsed any candidates. He hasn't said, this is who this is who I prefer. I think he's flagging concerns for people, and yeah, I give the guy those opportunities. I have nothing.
All right,
against
all
him
right.
for
I
doing that.
disagree with you on that, Ryan. I'm supporting
That's
you,
fine.
Robin. On this one, I'm supporting you. I think.
Well,
I think. I think you
I think
need
we could
to.
all love, we could all get behind John Rustad as an elder statesman. That's all I'm saying. Okay, John, or
Sure.
you
Well,
got a question?
what we need, is an effective opposition and
Mm,
a government in waiting to this absolute disaster that is the NDP. Okay, last question, because as you know, Ryan, our digital audience has a limited patience, so we've got to cater to that. I went provincial, I went national. I'm going to go provincial to another province. How real, how effective is Alberta separatism? Is that just noise? Noise, noise, noise? Please tell me that's noise.
It's noise. It's noise.
Good.
It's just noise. It is a, and I'm gonna get flack, I'm sure, from people who hear and see this. It is a big fat nothing burger. Now,
Yay!
does it generate, obviously, lots of feelings and lots of emotions? It surely does. I think there's a general sentiment in Alberta that, hey, we contribute a lot to the country. Why does it feel like we're always being demonized? And I've got friends and I've got family that live in Calgary, so I totally understand where they come from. But the fact of the matter is, Alberta's not going anywhere. They are landlocked. They have, if they were to separate, it would create a whole crazy whack of issues,
It's
and it's just not going to happen. It is a gigantic red herring that is going to go nowhere.
Couldn't agree more. Hey, this has been fantastic. Ryan Painter, we got to get you back more often. You've got some good stuff,
absolutely.
man.
I'm around. And hey, Robin, I want to just say, you mentioned something earlier that I just didn't want to lose a thread of. You mentioned being a red Tory. And look, I actually am very proud to consider myself that red Tory faction. I am very much someone who is socially moderate, probably even a little bit liberal, but definitely fiscally conservative. I think that's important. And I think those are the people we need to always be talking to. That's who Mark Carney's talking to. That's why he's prime minister.
And that, I would suggest, is what a majority of Canadians are.
Correct.
Socially liberal and fiscally conservative, a majority of Canadians. And some political leaders forget that once in a while. So this has been awesome. This has been awesome. John, do you have final something to say about Ryan's performance?
I agree. And we got to start to settle down some of these political parties and have them focus on us and the economy and generating opportunity for us. Come on, people, get on with it.
And in the meantime, rumble on.
Rumble on.